All right, we're back from the break. We had a little discussion about the grids.
Yeah.
People walk outside, they see the grids with the cloud seeding. What is that?
It's not grids with
Or,
clouds.
I mean, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
with the chemtrails.
Yeah. Listen, man. There's an email, contact@rainmaker.com. If anybody has credible scientific evidence of deliberate contrail chemtrail manipulation of the weather or like poisoning, send it there. I want to see it. My chief of staff is going to kill me for saying that because he's going to get a bazillion.
You're about to get
emails.
bombarded.
But like the crisscrossing thing that people see in the sky, it's just a lot of airlines, man. There's a lot of planes that fly in different directions, and so the ones that go east and west and north and south happen to intersect. And sometimes it looks like a grid. And humans are really good at recognizing patterns. So we see that pattern and think something's going on. Nothing yet, man.
This is what it is.
Yeah.
It's just people don't like the boring answer, huh?
There's a lot of crazy stuff that is actually happening. So, like, let's talk about that, you know? Like, all of our kids' minds are being melted by TikTok. And there's birth control in the water. And there's plastic in everything that we touch. And China is stealing all of our IP and all of our actual critical industries. And actually, my company can manipulate the weather. So, like, those things are all real. That's more interesting to me than making stuff up.
What was the birth control thing again?
Yeah, so women are, women take hormonal birth control. They then urinate, that goes into the water system. A lot of cities recycle their water, but we don't have any specific filtration mechanism for those hormones. So they just get recycled and pumped back into the municipal water supply.
So is this like a significant amount of birth control in the water?
Yes.
And there's an infertility problem.
Yes.
How does it affect males? Do you know?
It makes you more asexual. Yeah, so it makes you less of a guy and more of a sort of, I don't know, like the way that most guys are now.
The way that most guys are now. Yeah. I've heard there's so many conspiracies about the chemtrails, and I've heard that they're spraying estrogen in the air to...
Well, let me tell you something, though.
Oh, shit. Here we go.
So the material that we use, it freezes the liquid in cloud into snowflakes that fall, right? Pure testosterone. It's not as effective, but it's almost as effective as silver iodide. So if we really want to make America healthy again,
we'll all be showered in testosterone.
I can make that happen.
Oh man, that's. Have you ever heard of Solbert?
Mm-mm.
I interviewed them about 2-3 years ago, and they basically had come up with this formula where they would chemtrail it with a plane and spray this solution over trees. And basically what the solution supposedly does is it's almost like a tanning lotion that you put on the trees. And it keeps it allows them to it allows plants to do photosynthesis a lot longer than normal because I think it has to be like 72 degrees or something for that to occur. And so this enables it to do more, which would clean the air and all this other stuff. I didn't know if you had heard of them or not.
No, I haven't. But
basically, it helps trees grow a lot faster.
Yeah, I don't know whether that is healthy or not or what it's made of, but like if it is helping green stuff.
It works. They gave me a bunch of samples. I sprayed it all
Really?
over a bunch of trees, and they blew up.
No way.
Yeah, to 100%, it works.
That's fascinating because long term, Rainmaker has to do more than just like making it rain more, right? Like we have to automate tree planting. We have to figure out how to make the trees grow faster, or we have to make sure that the soil retains more water. So that tech sounds super, super interesting.
So that's an interesting point because when you were talking about, greening the Sahara, I mean, where would the soil come from?
So rather than the Sahara, right, let's like take Arizona as an example. Kingston, Arizona, a lot of that soil is the same mineral content as the Central Valley. It's just not productive because there's not enough water. right? So there's a ton of areas in the world where it's like ready to farm if only for water supply. So like you can start with those and you don't need to change the soil too much. Now, in the case of a lot more arid regions, how do you get the amount of nutrients and water to stay in the soil for actual plants to grow? Because if you plant a seed in sand, like probably no dice, right? There's these things called hydrogels or biochar or just like manure that you can till into the soil to, one, put nutrients there, and two, allow the soil to retain more water. So if you just have an automated tractor or combine or something that grates the soil, mixes in, this water retaining material, then that instantly becomes much, much, much more arable.
Interesting. Let's talk about how this all works.
Okay.
How does it work?
You have water in clouds, right? I'll walk you through the form of the tech that we understand very well, and then a proposed alternative way. You have water in clouds. 80% of precipitation-ish that occurs on the planet happens because you have water in clouds, and then you have natural dust, or you have bacteria that gets kicked up from the soil, all natural stuff, that the water freezes onto, turns into big heavy snowflakes, and then falls, either stays as snow or melts into rain, right? Rainmaker and cloud seeding mimics this natural process where you have water in the clouds, but the droplets aren't big enough and heavy enough to naturally precipitate. If you put material in the cloud that has a crystal structure similar to ice, then the water will freeze onto it, grow into those big snowflakes, and fall. That's sort of like the high level, but the system that Rainmaker uses has a few other important components. So first of all, you have to be able to detect whether a cloud has enough liquid, because if the cloud is mostly ice, then you can't freeze much more. But we use radar to measure how much liquid is in the cloud. The way that we do that is one wave of the radar moves vertically, right? And then the other is oriented horizontally. So you get the amount of the beam that is reflected in both directions. And so if you have about an equal amount of the horizontal and vertical beam reflected, then you have a spherical target. So it's probably a water drop, right? If you get more of one versus the other, then it's probably more oblong and like a snowflake or like an ice crystal. So we can use the radar to measure where the liquid water is in the cloud. If we find that, then we'll launch our drones up into it. The drones that we've built are the only ones in NATO that are under 55 pounds that can survive in severe icing conditions, because this is really cold water, right? So we have these resistors inlaid onto the vehicle that melt the ice off as it accretes onto the drone. So you find the water with the radar, you fly your drone up into these conditions, hope that it survives. You disperse the material. So we have this aerosol dispersion system that basically just emits individual particles that the water freezes onto. And then with the same radar you found the water with, you can now see it freezing, growing into bigger snowflakes, and then eventually bigger drops, and measure how much precipitates downwind.
So you're essentially introducing some type of an agent that has weight to it, and that's pulling the water down.
You're introducing an agent that the water freezes onto, and then it's just the weight of the water that pulls it down. So for every pound of this that you put up, you get in excess of 40 million pounds down on the ground. 40 million pounds of water.
40 million. Wow.
Yeah.
How many drones does it take to do this?
Like 3.
That's it?
So what we do is we juggle them. So one drone will go up. Once that reaches altitude, the next drone will go up. The first drone, after dispersing its full payload, will come down, and you'll just cycle that as long as the conditions persist. So sometimes that means, you're out there for 2 hours. Our forward operations specialists, though, it's a lot of former vets, National Forest Service guys, oil roughnecks, people that are willing just to live out on a mountain for 9 months at a time. Speaking of which, apply to rainmaker.com/careers to become a forward operations specialist, because we need like 50 dudes in the next 3 months. But they can stay out there for like 4 days at a time, just taking shifts, operating day and night. because you can have an atmospheric river that will last for days.
How big of a how exact can you pick a location to have it rain on?
So I cannot make it rain over the house of your enemies. We are not precise enough to target some individual person's house or something like that. We're not even precise enough to target an individual farm. So we're talking about 100 to 500 square miles at a time. In certain cases, up to like 1,000 square miles at a time.
Sorry, go back. So the smallest would be
The smallest would basically be like an average size city.
okay.
An average size city, the watershed of a hydroelectric dam, something like that. So the smallest would be that sort of scale, like municipal sizes.
Let's talk about the first time you did this.
Yeah.
Where you made it rain.
Yep.
Just walk me through that scenario. That experience.
Well, I'll tell you, first of all, we failed way more times before we actually accomplished it. We crashed a lot of drones. We did not have the system to actually target liquids, so we were flying into clouds that were just ice, so we couldn't affect them at all. It was a pretty. Everybody that's on the Rainmaker team is pretty tough for having stuck out that period. It's sort of like, all startups think about how Elon blew up 3 rockets before he actually launched one into space. Like, we had a lot of drones crash before we actually were able to make it precipitate. And so we were up in northeastern Oregon in a town called Pendleton. It's where Pendleton wool is from, if you know it. It's a town of 16,000 people, 2,000 of which are in a prison. Most of the rest are farmers. So super, super small spot. We have a team of forecasters that saw that there was an atmospheric river coming in. The clouds were about 2 kilometers thick, almost all liquid. We were able to, finally get the radar system functional enough to measure that water, and then launch weather balloons to take in-cloud measurements of the water there. And then we were just flying drones for hours and hours. And we didn't have the processing capability live yet to take live measurements. So we were just out there operating, flying drones for a few hours. And then we pack up, go back to the warehouse that we were all living out of, look at the radar data, and then saw from the time that we started operating, about 15 minutes afterwards, this plume on the radar exclusively downwind. So this whole big cloud system wasn't precipitating, and only on the radar do you see downwind where our particle plume was, an increase in precipitation. And another thing that I guess this is an opportune time to share is there was a snow day at the local school district, 15 miles north of where we were, where the wind was going. So that was a pretty cool thing to have done for the kids there locally. It was yeah, that was back in December 12th of last year.
Wow. So you just got it done within the last 6 months.
6 months. We Rainmaker has kind of been like this, and then that, just like rapid growth trajectory since we were able to do it.
Have you been in your own rain?
Snow. Yeah, our own snow. It's actually way easier to make snow than it is rain.
Why is that?
So you know how the material freezes the liquid in the cloud? Mm-hmm. That means that the cloud has to be cold enough for you to freeze it in the first place, which generally means that it's cold beneath the cloud too. Now, with respect to rain, we're operating in Utah, Colorado, Oregon, California, and Texas. It's all rain in Texas, so we've been in our own rain there. Out in West Texas and the Trans-Pecos, the Panhandle. That's been pretty cool.
Yeah, that's got to be pretty. It's got to be a weird feeling, knowing that that's your rain.
Like I said, that's the second most important thing that I've ever done in my life.
What is the agent?
Yeah, so silver iodide. That is what has been used in one form or another for the last 60 years. Its crystal structure is almost identical to ice. So that plus a couple other material properties make the water freeze onto it very well. We use so little of it, about 50 grams per 100,000 plus acres, that there's no accumulation, no measurable or consequential accumulation in the soil for humans or for farms or for ecosystems. All that being said, though, well, actually, the first point is most cloud seeding operations in the past have used flares. So they'll burn a flare that aerosolizes the silver iodide. But in the flare, there's a bunch of other junk materials, right? People get concerned about aluminum or stuff like that in the flares. So we don't use that because we don't want any additional additives beyond what is explicitly and exclusively for rainmaking. So our aerosol dispersion system just uses silver iodide. Something that we're working on right now is totally organic material found in American soil that is biodegradable, that is more effective and actually costs less per gram than silver iodide. We have a bunch of lab testing to do before we roll that out to the field, and then we need to do all of the regulatory permissions with the EPA and otherwise. But silver iodide is what we've used for the last 7 months.
When do you think you'll introduce the other agent?
January 2026.
Coming up, another 6 months. Nice. Let's talk about, some of the benefits of this, other than the obvious. What are some of the other benefits that this could bring to the world?
We'll start just with precipitation enhancement, making it rain and snow more, right? First of all, it's going to it already is preventing farms from running dry, right? So farms that need more water, we can produce more water for. All of the aquifers, I said at the very beginning of our discussion, in the American West are running out. And so once those aquifers run out, not only are they empty, which is bad because we can't pump more, but also because there's less pressure in the aquifer, the sediment will compress, and then you lose storage capacity permanently. So the longer there's not enough water in there, the less you can store in the future. So making it rain and snow more so that more water percolates into the aquifer, that is also super important so that we have storage capacity in the future. Hydroelectric, right? It's clean, stable baseload power. I think that eventually nuclear is going to be like the primary way that we produce energy. But while we're getting towards that, making sure that there's as much water flowing through our rivers as possible so that we have as much clean hydroelectric energy, that's a huge one. And then also data centers and manufacturing facilities and specifically chip plants that use a lot of water, like Google Cloud Compute uses 25% of all of the water in northeastern Oregon. Yeah. So in the northeastern quarter of the state, they use a quarter of all the water, and it's all farmland, right? So you would think that the farmers would use like 99%, but Google uses a ton. So if we want to keep using the internet, and if we want to invest in AI, then we need to produce more water as well.
Is there a timeline on when these aquifers will be depleted?
Somewhere between the 2040s and 2070s.
So not long.
No. And we're not reversing the trend right now. We're slowing it down, but it's still being drawn down. Interestingly enough, Nebraska and Orange County are the two places in the U.S. that have great aquifers. Unfortunately, Orange County's aquifer is full of plastic, and Nebraska's aquifer is full of, pesticides. So not great, but at least they have the water. So yeah, without cloud seeding, we run out of water. That's number one. And then with respect to other stuff, like people have proposed means of doing hail suppression. So targeting a storm before it dumps golf ball or baseball sized hail. If you can freeze the liquid in the cloud into really, really small snowflakes before they freeze onto bigger stones and grow into bigger stones, then you can reduce the amount of damage done by that as well. That's another huge application that I think about.
Interesting. So if we're talking about, bringing all this water to Arizona, California, the Western United States, Africa, Middle East, and anywhere else in the world that, is a barren desert. I mean, how long, you had mentioned decades, but how long does it take? And what's the process look like to take somebody that is in a desert environment and turn it into a farming community is what I'm getting at.
So it's easier in places that have good soil mineral content, right? So like a lot of Arizona is going to be easier than a lot of Sudan, right? Because they have the Sahara, so that's just wasteland. Arizona, I think that if we don't do any cloud seeding there right now. If we stood up a program, I think that you could start farming in previously inarable land in the course of years. I mean, first things first, you got to meet all of the deficits. So like there's a lot of farms that are already running dry. So if you make enough water first from a cloud seeding program to make sure that they're taken care of, then how much more can you produce for other communities? You can probably do that in the course of a couple of years. So maybe like 3, then that land starts to come online. And then with respect to the real wastelands, right? Like the Bolivian salt flats, the Sahara Desert, the Australian outback, that's going to be multi-decadal. Like what I think about happening is this. While Elon sends rockets to Mars to set up the first civilization there, we will get really good at atmospheric engineering here to make the carrying capacity of Earth higher. And by the time you have like a bubble city on Mars that's self-sufficient and they start melting the ice caps on Mars to create an atmosphere there, we will be good enough at atmospheric engineering here on Earth such that we can start to distribute the water the way that we want to on Mars. Now that's like really towards the end of my life. My son will probably be the one responsible for that rather than me. But that's the timescale that I'm thinking
Wow,
about.
you've really played this out. You're thinking real long term.
Yeah, I think that people used to think more like that. There's that old adage, something like a city grows great when men plant trees under the shade of which they will never sit, or something like that, right? Like, I think that if you are a Christian and you think about like helping build the kingdom of God, if you are a patriot and you want your nation to survive and persist and for future Americans to be better off than any previous generation, like you should sort of sacrifice your life, not necessarily like die, right? But you should probably live your life in service to those future people. That's what I'm trying.
So that's interesting. Now diving into the corruption, I mean, lobbying firms, I don't know who you would be pissing off. I would imagine you're pissing off the utility companies because somebody's making money pulling water out of those aquifers, and they've been making money for a long time, and sure, they're very powerful people. I mean, I would imagine in generally my outlook is those people do not have the best interest of the population. They have the most interest in, their estate, their assets, the money they're making. And so are you working against them, do you think?
Well,
Do they have lobbying firms going out and talking to the governments and talking about all of the,
I think
reasons why you can't do this because it's going to affect their bank account, their bottom line?
I think we're early enough that hasn't happened yet. I think a convenient thing about us, unlike nuclear, where like oil and gas advocate against nuclear to some extent, right? Like that's a real trade. Water, very few people have enough of it, so I think most everyone wants more. It's pretty bipartisan. Like it's pretty hard to say like, no, we shouldn't have more water. But I think the bad outcome is one where like weather traders that trade on futures that are betting on severe weather or droughts or crop failures don't want to see this through because you can make money off of those trades. I think there's that situation, but I haven't yet encountered anybody that seems to be like knowingly, maliciously trying to prevent like a good technology from coming to market.
What could go wrong? What could go wrong in doing this? The only thing that comes to my mind, is floods and then, not knowing the effects of who you're stealing the rain from, where the wind's blowing. But I mean, if there was a miscalculation and it dumped on insert city.
Yeah, I mean, so
They don't have, you had just mentioned, Dubai didn't have the drainage. They weren't able to take on that amount of water. I mean, it could be devastating.
yeah, I think the
Mudslides.
Yeah, the simple way to get around that is you just don't operate in highly populated areas, right? So like the Rocky Mountains, relatively unpopulated, but all of the snow and rain that goes there runs off into the cities that into the reservoirs and rivers that do benefit the cities, but tens or hundreds or thousands of miles away. So you can mitigate for that risk by operating in more remote areas. What could go wrong beyond that? Yeah, I think that you covered most of the bases there. It is if someone was totally irresponsible and totally irregulated operating over a highly populated area that you could run the risk of avalanches. But avalanches or floods. But in order to do that, like I said, you'd have to be operating totally irresponsibly. You'd have to have like either bad science or malicious intent. You would have to skirt around the existing regulations that require you to suspend operations if there is any risk. So we have like a pretty solid framework to prevent any sort of disasters from happening there. What if? Yeah, I don't know. I think those are probably the big ones.
I mean, when you talk about malicious intent, do you think that this could be weaponized?
We know that it can be weaponized. So we know that it was weaponized in Vietnam. I would be surprised. Let me pose this hypothetical, right? There's a limited window of time in the Straits of Taiwan during which landing craft can easily traverse the straits because the weather is not so severe that there's not a lot of rain coming down. There's not really rough seas. If you can modify the weather and you can extend or shorten that window, then the strategic situation around that island changes meaningfully. Similarly, if you're trying to move personnel or material and it's wet on the ground, right? Like a lot of Operation Barbarossa failed because tanks got stuck, armor got stuck in Russia during the spring. If you could make it more wet on the ground, then that would have some tactical consequence as well. So yeah, absolutely possible. Rainmaker doesn't do that. For whatever it's worth. I don't think people will believe me, but
I mean, it seems like Taiwan would have a major interest in this just to mitigate that situation.
Have you heard of the fake windmills that Taiwan's building?
No.
So nominally, they want more clean power, right? And so what's one thing you can do? You can build windmills off in the ocean. Actually, though, also, you can build something that looks like a windmill that isn't even connected to grid power and then station, underwater drones or boats or helicopters or aircraft on the pads that are for the windmill, and then be 30, 50 kilometers farther out to sea as like a first line of defense.
Interesting.
Now, at the same time, China is building windmills, like right next to Taiwan's windmills. So there's a bit of a chess game happening right there with fake energy resources.
I think China's just building islands.
Yeah, they are. What's it called? The 9-dash line or something?
Yeah.
7-dash line? They're building islands. They're sending their Coast Guard boats after like fishing ships and stuff. Their fishing ships are harassing other navies. There's Chinese fishing boats. If you look out at the ocean from El Salvador or Costa Rica or I think Guatemala too, if you look at the ocean at night, it looks like you're looking at a city because of all the lights. Those are just enormous Chinese fishing boats that are tearing fish out of the ocean. Same problem in Argentina. Their fisheries are getting destroyed. And up in Alaska, even too, to some extent. Like, they are harvesting so much fish so unsustainably in other countries' waters. And we don't even do anything about it.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Jeez. We're wrapping up the interview here.